Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be doing a deep dive on something that I think is really fascinating.
Okay.
It's this whole idea of true worship.
Oh, interesting.
And we're looking at this blog post from Positive Affirmations.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of that?
I have. Yeah, they have a lot of inspirational content online.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, that vibe. And one of the things that really jumped out at me when I was reading this was this idea that true worship, it's not just for Sundays.
Right.
It's not just about going to church or whatever your thing is, it's like a 24/7 thing.
Wow.
It can be woven into our work.
Interesting.
Our relationships, even like how we handle those mornings where everything's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I've had a few of those.
Oh, yeah, we all have.
Yeah. It's interesting how they kind of flip the script on what we typically think of as worship.
Yeah.
It's not just confined to those rituals or those specific places.
Right, and they jump right into it.
Okay.
They define true worship as worship in spirit and truth.
Interesting.
Which I thought was interesting, and they even quote John 4:24 from the Bible.
Wow.
Just to kind of like emphasize the point. And it says,
Yeah.
God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship in the spirit and in truth.
Powerful words.
Yeah, but what really struck me was how they emphasize lifestyle rather than just actions.
So it's not just about what you do, but how you live.
Exactly. Yeah. And what are your thoughts on that?
What really makes you think about, what are the deeper implications of living a life of worship?
Right.
And this blog post, it breaks it down into these two key elements.
Okay.
Spirit-led and truth-grounded worship.
I see.
So spirit-led worship, as they describe it here, it's about, fostering that personal connection with God, embracing a freedom from rigid rituals and really focusing on a genuine inner transformation.
So it's not just like going through the motions. It's about letting that connection really shape who you are at your core.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's that truth-grounded worship.
Okay.
Which emphasizes the importance of rooting your beliefs and your actions in something solid.
Yeah.
Like the Bible.
Yeah.
It's about mirroring God's character.
Okay.
Not just seeking personal gain.
Yeah.
But ultimately focusing on something larger than yourself.
It's like finding that balance between the internal transformation and the external actions that reflect those changes.
Exactly.
Yeah, before we get, too far into all the details, I'm kind of curious.
Okay.
When you think of the word worship, what comes to mind?
Oh, gosh. Well, I think for a lot of people, the first things that pop into their head are, singing specific rituals.
Yeah.
Being in a church setting.
Right.
It's interesting to think about how this definition might broaden our understanding of what worship can really be.
Yeah.
And how it can even impact
totally
how we approach those daily routines.
That's one of the things that I loved about this article.
Yeah.
It suggests that true worship can really transform.
Wow.
Like the mundane parts of life. Okay. And they give some really interesting examples of this in both personal and professional settings.
So it's not just about trying to make every task overtly religious.
Right.
Right. It's more about approaching everything with a sense of purpose and intentionality, aligning those actions with your beliefs.
They use the example of Jessica.
Okay.
This single mom.
Oh, wow.
Who finds herself feeling totally overwhelmed in the morning.
I know those mornings.
Oh, we all do.
Yeah.
But instead of letting the chaos take over, she uses worship music and prayer to find peace. Okay. And center herself before the day begins.
It's like a mindfulness practice with a spiritual element.
Exactly. Yeah. And it reminds me of all this research on the calming effects of music and prayer on the brain.
There's a growing body of evidence suggesting that, these practices can actually reduce stress and anxiety.
So it's not just about feeling good. Right. It's about creating tangible, positive changes within ourselves.
Yeah. And then they take this concept even further by talking about how work can be an act of worship.
That's where I was like, wait, really?
Right.
But they make a compelling case. Okay. They talk about David, an architect, who approaches his projects with this dedication to excellence and integrity inspired by his faith.
I see.
And that, in turn, inspires those around him.
What's interesting here is that in this concept of worship through work, it's not limited to any one profession.
Right.
It could be a doctor,
a teacher,
a stay-at-home parent.
Right.
An architect like David.
It's about finding that connection between what you do and why you do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And how that reflects something deeper.
Right. And it ties back to those two key elements we were discussing earlier.
Okay.
Spirit-led and truth-grounded worship.
Yeah.
Jessica finds that inner peace through her personal connection with God.
Right.
That spirit.
Right.
And then David's work is grounded in the values and the principles of his faith.
So they're like
a truth.
Two sides of the same coin.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love how these seemingly like separate ideas are all weaving together.
It really is.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It opens up a whole new way of thinking about worship.
It does.
I think so.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's really cool. Yeah. So I'm excited to keep going.
Yeah, me too.
Let's see what else they have to say about this whole idea of true worship.
Okay.
So.
Let's do it. It really does challenge us to see worship as something that like permeates, every aspect of our lives.
Yeah, it's not just a Sunday thing.
Exactly.
It's like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
It's a life thing.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, so we've talked about what true worship looks like and how it can show up in these unexpected places.
Yes.
But this article doesn't stop there.
Okay.
It also dives into the benefits of living this way.
Okay.
And I gotta say, some of the benefits they list sound pretty amazing.
They do. They mention things like a closer relationship with God, a deep sense of inner peace, and even the ability to be a positive influence.
Right. Others.
That's huge.
It is. But what I find really compelling is that they don't shy away from the realities of life's challenges.
They're not promising a problem-free life.
Exactly.
If you just worship.
Yeah, it's not
it's not a magic.
It's not a magic wand, you know? It's not about avoiding hardship.
Right.
It's more about facing those inevitable challenges with a different perspective, with a stronger foundation.
So it's not about escaping the hard stuff, but being equipped.
It's about being equipped
to handle it
in a more grounded way.
Yeah, in a more meaningful way.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. But how do we actually get there?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
How do we cultivate this kind of worship-infused life?
And thankfully, the article gives us some practical steps.
And I appreciate that they offer specific actions.
Yeah.
Not just vague advice.
It makes it feel like something we can actually do.
Is attainable.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
They start with something pretty simple. Gratitude.
Right.
They suggest beginning each day by thanking God for the good things in your life, no matter how small.
Such a powerful practice, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Shifting your focus from what you lack to what you already have.
Right.
It really sets a positive tone for the day.
And then they talk about the importance of really being present during those dedicated times of worship.
Right.
Whether it's prayer singing, reading scripture, minimizing distractions, and really engaging with that connection to something larger.
It's so easy to let those practices become routine,
Yes.
But when we approach them with that intentionality, it deepens the experience.
Yeah. The next step they mention is reflection.
Okay.
Specifically meditating on key verses from the Bible.
Oh, interesting.
Like the one we mentioned earlier.
Okay.
John 4.24.
Yeah.
And it's about letting those words really sink in and shape your understanding.
It's like taking those words beyond just intellectual knowledge and allowing them to resonate on a deeper level.
More personally,
yeah. And then finally, they highlight service
Okay.
as a powerful expression of worship.
So it's about
extending that love and grace outward to others.
Right.
Letting your actions be a reflection of your beliefs.
It's taking your faith beyond yourself and using it to make a positive impact.
Make a real difference in the world.
And to illustrate this point, they share a great example of someone putting these principles into practice.
Okay, I'm curious.
They talk about Mark, a software developer who makes a conscious effort to integrate prayer into his work. It's interesting.
Which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, it's not something you hear every day.
No.
What strikes me about Mark's story is he doesn't separate his faith from his professional life.
Yeah.
He's found a way to weave them together.
Yeah. And the results are pretty cool.
So what happened?
He says that praying during his workday has not only created a calmer, more focused atmosphere for him, but it's also opened up opportunities to share his faith
Oh, wow.
With his colleagues.
So it's not just about him.
Right.
It's impacting others.
In a natural way.
Yeah.
Not in a, preachy way.
It's authentic.
Right.
It's a beautiful example of how those seemingly ordinary tasks can become acts of worship.
When you approach it.
When approached with intentionality.
With an open heart.
And an open heart, yes.
And it ties back to that idea that true worship can permeate every aspect of life.
Yeah.
Even those areas we might not traditionally do spirituality. And it reminds us that we don't have to compartmentalize.
Right.
Our beliefs can be a guiding force. In everything we do.
Yeah, it's a whole new lens to see the world through.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really is amazing to think about how just these little shifts, in perspective can make such a big difference.
Absolutely.
We've gone from defining true worship to actually seeing how it can play out in our everyday lives.
It's practical.
Right? From our personal routines to our professional endeavors.
And it's not a destination.
Right.
It's an ongoing journey.
It's not about achieving that perfect ideal of worship.
Right. Yeah. It's about continually seeking that alignment with our values.
And letting that inform how we interact with the world.
Yes. And as we saw with Mark.
Yeah.
That transformation can impact others.
Yeah. It can have a ripple effect.
A ripple effect, yeah.
What I think is really interesting is we've explored all this without even talking about specific denominations or getting into
theological debates.
Right. Yeah. It's more about just
it's about the core principles.
These core principles that I think resonate with a lot of people.
And it speaks to that human desire for meaning and purpose.
Totally.
And while the source we're discussing comes from a Christian perspective, the concepts themselves resonate with many spiritual traditions.
Yeah, finding that inner peace, connecting to something larger.
Right.
And then expressing that through acts of service.
Those are aspirations that go beyond any one belief system.
It's we're all kind of striving for that same worship.
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Maybe true worship at its core is about aligning our lives with our deepest values, whatever they may be.
Right.
And letting that guide our actions in the world.
Wow. So we've covered a lot today.
We have.
We went from defining true worship to exploring its practical applications to even thinking about its broader implications.
What a journey.
It's been quite a journey. So as we wrap up, what's one key takeaway that you hope our listener walks away with?
I think if there's one thing I want our listeners to remember, it's that true worship isn't confined to a specific time, place, or rituals.
Yeah.
It's a way of life.
It's like a lens through which we can see the world and find meaning in everything we do.
Beautifully said.
I think that's a perfect note to end on.
I agree.
I hope you, our listener, feel inspired to kind of explore this concept further.
Yeah.
And discover how worship in spirit and truth can shape your own journey.
Keep seeking. Keep questioning and keep letting those values guide you.
Until next time, keep diving deep.